In March of 2016, Craig Percival set out to become the first person ever to complete 8 Ironmans in Australia's 8 states and territories in 8 days. His goal, to raise $80,000 for the John McClane Foundation.
Mate, I've done 13 in my whole career. For him to do 8 in 8 days, it's mind-blowing, actually. It's an incredible feat of physical endurance, mental toughness, and logistical work with a huge support crew that you need. So it's a massive undertaking. You know, they've been planning this for months. Craig's been training his whole life, and it's going to take nothing less than just a world-class superhuman performance, because, I mean, the distance you're talking about, it's a 3.8 kilometre swim, 180 kilometre cycle, and then a full marathon every day for 8 days consecutively. And in between the actual event itself, you have to travel from state to state, which presents its own logistical challenges. So it's just incredible what he's doing.
It all started in Darwin and at 2 a.m. to avoid the 43-degree heat coming later that day. He then flew to Perth and pulled off a sub-11-hour Ironman in sweltering 36-degree temperatures, and incredibly caught his connecting flight by running to the airport.
Perth was almost a perfect day. It was an amazing day. So, and then jumped into the Virgin Lounge, and that was a classic moment. I remember hobbling in, and I still felt all right. And you go into the Virgin Lounge, they've got showers and stuff in there. So I remember being actually in under the shower, and we had stuff everywhere over the floor. There was, bike kit and run kit and all sorts of wet clothes everywhere. And I heard them call the boarding, such and such boarding for Adelaide. And I was like, yeah, this is kind of how I thought it might happen. So anyway, we made it. I don't think we were last on, and all of a sudden, we were on our way to Adelaide.
Where another day in the mid-30s awaited him.
I remember one guy rocking up, he was so excited. He goes, Craig, I'm wrapped. My son's soccer's been cancelled because of the heat. I can come and run some laps with you. I was like, excellent, buddy. Outside of that, I just remember watching people in the pubs, because we were kind of running past a few, open-air pub type thing, and you could just tell people just going, what are these guys doing? It's like the middle of the day, it's 35 degrees, they're inside having ice cold beers, and there's this bunch of weirdos outside running.
He had hoped that a return to Tasmania, the state where he grew up, would bring a respite from the hot weather. But as well as another day nudging 30 degrees, he copped headwinds on the bike. By the time he finished, he was so dizzy he could hardly stand up, while his feet were starting to suffer. On the one hand, he was now halfway through the 8 in 8 in 8 challenge, but there was still so much pain to endure.
And it was halfway, it was number 4. And at that point I was like, holy crap, how am I going to get through another 4? Because it just, each day had been like, yeah, that was the hardest one. No, that was the hardest one. So there hadn't been the Adelaide or Hobart, where we expected Hobart to be more like 20 degrees, or instead it was 29 or whatever. And Adelaide, we wanted a recovery day. Hadn't worked out that way. So each day had gradually, I hadn't been able to look back on it and go, yeah, Perth was the hardest. So there was kind of, I guess that thought was like, geez, if Canberra's harder than what these days have been, or Sydney's going to be harder, it wasn't confronting, it was just like a realisation, like, holy crap, this is not easy. And not that I expected it to be easy, but I really thought once we got past number 2 in Perth, it kind of wouldn't get any harder.
It was on to the nation's capital, where he met Robbie.
We'd arrived at the pool at Canberra, and I'd walked in, and I was dragging my feet. I wasn't feeling sorry for myself, but I was just fatigued or whatever. But then I spotted Robbie and was introduced to Robbie Johnston, who's a 20-year-old boy he'd been hit while at uni studying medical science. So, sharp kid, and he'd been hit on a pedestrian crossing by a car. So Robbie sat on the side of the pool in his wheelchair, and I just remember starting and seeing him on the side of the pool, and it was just beautiful. And then while I was swimming, I could actually hear him yelling out, go Craig, and geez, I get goosebumps now. And then when he jumped in the pool, because I noticed he disappeared off the side, I was like, oh bugger, he's gone home, but that was cool, no worries, he'd been there for ages. And then I noticed that he jumped in the pool, and that was just awesome. It was just great. And I just took some time. I just kicked next to him. He was lying on his back. He had a little floaty on, and he was just kicking. And he was a good kicker. He was moving quite fast. It was really good. So I just jumped in the lane with him, and he was still yelling, "Go, Craig! Go, Craig!" It was just like, this is amazing. And just everything else kind of got forgotten. It was just a really, really beautiful moment, and certainly one I'll never forget.
He got through the Canberra Ironman but was absolutely exhausted and finished so late that instead of getting some sleep in a hotel, the team had to drive straight through to Sydney. In a journey that project leader Kate Patterson and wife Lyndall described as the worst road trip ever, Craig had to face the fact that the 8in8in8 might be beyond him.
Yeah, we talked about, okay, what are the options? And one of them was, okay, we'll do Sydney, we'll give Brisbane a miss, and then we can reload and we'll finish with Melbourne. And so that would have been 7 out of 8. And then do we pull the pin? And our fundraising wasn't good at that point. To me, it wasn't. We were nowhere near. We were at 30,000 after day 5, and that wasn't the target. The target was 80,000.
But when he climbed into the pool in Sydney, 3-time World Ironman champ Craig "Crowie" Alexander and John McLean were there waiting for him. He got through the swim and was then joined on the bike by former Aussie cricket captain Steve Waugh. So, 24 hours after considering pulling the pin on the event, Craig was on his way to a hotel in Sydney to sleep for 2 hours before flying to Brisbane for the penultimate Ironman. The day was not without drama though. Craig suffered a knee injury that left him walking the first 30 kilometres of the marathon, but he got the job done. Touching down in his hometown of Melbourne, Craig was met by his kids and then a guard of honour at the pool. He was on the verge of something special, diving in for his final swim of the 8in8in8 challenge and delivering another cheque for the John McLean Foundation. On the ride, the peloton amassed 50 cyclists, and despite the occasional roadside stop to get some medical attention on those toes, Craig wrapped it up with laps of the Albert Park Grand Prix circuit. It was time to head out for the final marathon. It was a perfect Melbourne evening, and his hometown came out in big numbers to show their support. At 4 a.m, and with his wife and kids by his side, Craig finished the final leg of the 8in8in8, walking into the history books. Best of all, the next day he reached his goal of raising $80,000 for the John McLean Foundation. A Herculean effort, and one unlikely to be reprised anytime soon.
It just shows, and that's what this whole experience has been, is there are some really, really good people in the world, and I feel humbled to be involved or be able to do what I did, but that people showed so much support, their time and their money, that they did come on board with something I believe in. And yeah, it's great, mate. It's really great. And I thank absolutely everyone.
Craig Percival, you know what you have done, buddy. You've completed 8 Ironmans in 8 days in 8 states and territories of Australia. Simply amazing. So it's my pleasure to say to you, big guy, congratulations, Craig Percival. You are an 8-time Ironman. Well done, my friend.